My name is Sophia. I'm 32 years old, and I was standing inside the bridal suite when my phone pinged with a message. One new text from my mother. It read simply, "Don't expect anyone to show." My fingers trembled as I stared at those 6 brutal words. The happiness that had filled my heart on my wedding day evaporated in an instant, reduced to ash. Hoping for an explanation or even a mistake, I opened social media, desperately searching for clarity. And that's when I saw it, a group photo of my entire family, smiling on a private beach in Maui, captioned, "Finally together." I literally could not breathe. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're tuning in from and hit the like button if you've ever felt the sting of betrayal from your own family. Because this is the painful story of how I endured the deepest betrayal of my life. I was born into the Riley family, proprietors of one of the most prominent luxury hotel chains on the East Coast. Riley Luxury Hotels began with a modest boutique inn in downtown Boston, which my father, Charles, inherited from his own father. With relentless drive and savvy deal-making, he expanded that single location into a flourishing empire of 20 upscale hotels, stretching from Maine all the way to Florida. The Riley name became synonymous with prestige, opulence, and exclusivity. Growing up, I never lacked for material things. We resided in a sprawling estate in one of Boston's most elite neighborhoods, vacationed in the Hamptons and Aspen, and I was enrolled in the top-tier private schools. But what I truly longed for, what felt forever out of reach, was genuine parental love and approval. From a young age, it was obvious that my parents held drastically different expectations for me than they did for my older brother, Trevor. While I was held to rigid, sky-high standards, Trevor, 5 years my senior, could seemingly do no wrong. When I brought home straight A's, my father would simply nod and ask why I hadn't chosen harder classes. Meanwhile, when Trevor barely scraped by with B's and C's, the family would throw a celebration, complete with gifts that my mother, Diana, a former debutante who married into wealth, never hid her disappointment in me. She seemed irritated by my passion for business and books, and would dramatically sigh every time I expressed interest in hotel management. Instead of settling down with a wealthy husband from our social circle, still, I was determined to prove myself. I graduated at the top of my high school class, earned a business degree from Harvard, then went on to complete my MBA in hospitality management. All the while, Trevor coasted through a second-rate college, taking 6 years to finish a basic business degree at a university where my father had conveniently donated a building. When I joined the family business, I truly believed that my academic accomplishments and dedication would finally earn me my place. Instead, I was handed an entry-level position while Trevor, lacking both experience and qualification, was installed as vice president of operations. What became undeniably clear over the next few years was that while Trevor had the title, I was the one executives and staff turned to when crises arose. There were 3 major disasters where my quick thinking saved the company from Trevor's incompetence. The first occurred during a major renovation of our flagship hotel in Boston. Trevor had approved a contractor's bid that seemed suspiciously cheap without checking for proper licensing or insurance. 2 days before the start date, I uncovered that the company was a fraudulent shell with multiple complaints. I spent 3 sleepless nights negotiating with reputable firms to take over the project, successfully preventing lawsuits and reputational ruin. The second incident involved Trevor recklessly slashing luxury suite prices during peak season without consulting the revenue team. His goal? Higher occupancy. The result? Brand devaluation and plummeting revenue. I created a detailed financial analysis showing the damage and proposed a dynamic pricing model, which eventually raised profits by 23%. The third and most critical blunder happened in Miami. Trevor had ignored zoning compliance notices for our new property, letting warnings pile up. I discovered the oversight just 72 hours before the city planned to shut us down. I flew to Miami, negotiated nonstop with city officials, implemented urgent changes, and got the permits finalized just hours before the deadline. Each time, my father offered only grudging acknowledgments of my work while continuing to praise Trevor's non-existent leadership. It was deeply draining to give so much and receive so little in return. Yet I remained loyal, still clinging to the hope that someday I'd be seen, appreciated, and respected. Then came Eric. He was nothing like the overprivileged men in our social sphere. Eric Thompson, born and raised in Philadelphia, came from a modest middle-class background. He had worked his way through college, built a successful career as an architectural engineer, and had a grounded, kind-hearted nature. We met when his firm was brought in to consult on a hotel project. Our connection was instant and real. Eric truly saw me, not as a pawn or a disappointment, but as an intelligent, capable woman. He supported my dreams, my career, my voice. For the first time, I felt loved without condition. Naturally, my family hated him. My mother accused him of chasing my money. My father dismissed him as beneath us. Trevor made sneering remarks about Eric's public school background over family dinners, but Eric, with quiet dignity, never responded with anything but grace. After a year, Eric proposed during a simple picnic in Boston's public garden. No spectacle, no crowd, just us and a heartfelt promise to build a life on love and mutual respect. I accepted immediately. Announcing our engagement at the next family dinner felt like stepping into a war zone. My mother burst into tears, not of joy but shame. My father slammed his hand on the table and vowed not to attend the wedding. Trevor mocked the ring Eric gave me, a modest diamond heirloom from his grandmother, as if its size mattered more than its sentiment. That night ended in screaming and accusations, but I left with one truth etched into my soul. I would marry Eric, with or without them. He deserved better. I did too. Still, a part of me, foolishly or not, clung to the hope they'd come around, so I sent them formal invitations. Eric warned me I might just be setting myself up for heartache, but I insisted. They're still my family, I told him. I have to give them the chance. The next 6 months were filled with joy, chaos, and wedding planning. We booked the Grand Summit Hotel, a beautiful historic venue in Boston, deliberately choosing a location outside the Riley Empire. Eric and I planned every element together, from personalized menus to the music and decor. We picked burgundy and gold for our October celebration, chose autumnal flowers, and hired a photographer known for capturing raw, genuine moments. But my family's absence during all of it was glaring. My mother skipped dress shopping, citing a tennis lesson. When I sent her photos of my final 3 dress options, her only reply was, "The third makes your shoulders look wide." I invited my parents to the menu tasting, hoping food could bridge the divide. My dad declined, claiming he had a business meeting. I later learned he spent the day golfing. My mother canceled an hour before, blaming a migraine. Trevor and his wife, Jessica, ignored every invitation to help with preparations, offering increasingly flimsy excuses. When I asked Trevor, not even as a groomsman, just a wedding party, guessed he laughed and said, "Eric doesn't want me there, sis. We're not exactly pals." Even my extended family had begun to quietly distance themselves. Aunt Laura, who had always been more compassionate than my own parents, declined the invitation to my bridal shower, offering a vague excuse about a prior commitment. Uncle Robert, my father's brother and longtime co-partner in the hotel business, sent a lukewarm RSVP. "We'll try our best to make it." It was a reply soaked in ambiguity, neither a commitment nor an outright refusal. Despite the string of subtle rejections, I held on to the fragile belief that when the actual day arrived, the weight of family obligation and the importance of social appearances would bring them there. My parents had always cared deeply, perhaps obsessively, about how they were perceived within their elite circle. Surely they wouldn't want to face awkward questions from their country club peers about skipping their only daughter's wedding. But 2 weeks before the ceremony, I noticed something strange. My family members were becoming increasingly hard to reach. Phone calls went unanswered, straight to voicemail. Text messages were met with delayed, half-hearted one-word replies. Emails I sent about last-minute details and logistical arrangements were completely ignored. During our final walkthrough at the venue, the wedding coordinator asked me about family seating arrangements. That's when it hit me, a sinking realization curled in my stomach like a stone. I wasn't even sure they were going to show up at all. Still, I held on to that glimmer of hope and reserved the entire front row on my side of the aisle, trying desperately not to let go of optimism. A week before the wedding, I decided to drop by my parents' house unannounced, praying for a moment of honest conversation. The housekeeper greeted me with a nervous expression. When I asked if my parents were home, she hesitated. Then, in a quiet voice, she confessed that they had left that morning with multiple suitcases. They hadn't told anyone, including staff, where they were going. I called Trevor, hoping my brother would at least tell me the truth. Straight to voicemail. Later that day, his wife Jessica posted a vague message on social media about needing a break from Boston, but she never specified a destination. A cold dread began to creep up my spine, but I buried the feeling. I had too many things left to do. Too many flowers to confirm, playlists to finalize, timelines to coordinate. The night before the wedding, I made one final attempt to reach out to them. I called every number I had, sent messages filled with raw honesty, pouring out how much it would mean for them to be there, to see me marry the man I loved. But no replies came. I lay awake in the hotel suite I had reserved for my last night as a single woman, staring at the ceiling, 1,000 thoughts spinning through my head. Amy, my best friend and maid of honor, sat beside me and tried her best to comfort me. "Even if they don't come, Sophia," she said gently, "tomorrow is about you and Eric. Focus on your love, not their absence." I nodded. I was grateful for her presence, her warmth. But inside, I was raging and unraveling, torn between fear, grief, and simmering fury. The pain of potentially being abandoned on the most significant day of my life gnawed at me. And underneath all that turmoil, a whisper of self-doubt remained. What if they were right? What if marrying Eric truly meant betraying them? Morning came like a wave, bright, clear, crisp. A picture-perfect October day. Golden sunlight filtered through the hotel windows, and for just a few fleeting moments, I allowed myself to feel excited. Today I was marrying Eric. Amy arrived at 7:30 a.m. carrying coffee and flaky pastries. Not long after, the hairstylist and makeup artist showed up. The bridal suite began to buzz with the joyful chaos of wedding day preparations. One by one, my bridesmaids arrived, friends from college and work, each bringing laughter, thoughtful gifts, and champagne-fueled reassurance. "Has anyone from your family called?" Amy asked softly while the makeup artist was unpacking her tools. I checked my phone. "Nothing yet," I said with forced calm, "but it's still early." By 10 a.m., my hair had been styled in. Soft, elegant waves with tiny white flowers delicately pinned throughout. My makeup was understated but flawless, designed to survive both tears and kisses. The photographer arrived to document the getting ready moments. I posed, smiling carefully, trying to project peace, even as my soul vibrated with unease. At exactly 11:15, just as I stepped into my wedding dress, a vintage-inspired gown with intricate lace and delicate beading, my phone vibrated. My heart surged. It was my mother. With trembling hands, I opened the message. 6 words. "Don't expect anyone to show." No context, no apology, no explanation. Just a cold, clinical dismissal delivered hours before. I was meant to walk down the aisle. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. The entire room fell silent. My bridesmaids were frozen, staring at me. Sophia? Amy asked cautiously. I couldn't speak. I passed her the phone. Her face reddened with fury as she read it. That's unforgivable, she said, her voice trembling. How could she do this to you? I couldn't process the cruelty of the timing. After months of emotional distance, my mother had waited until the very moment I was standing in my wedding dress to drive the knife in. I have to call them, I whispered, my own voice sounding far away. I called my father. Voicemail. Trevor. Voicemail. My aunts, uncles, cousins, all unreachable. It was like they had conspired to vanish. Maybe there's an emergency, one of my bridesmaids suggested gently. But I already knew. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a coordinated act of exclusion. Desperate, I opened Instagram, and there it was. A post from my cousin Melissa just 20 minutes earlier. A bright, sunny group photo of my entire family on a glowing white sand beach. My parents grinning in the center. Trevor and Jessica on either side. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone, arms slung around one another, drinks in hand, wearing sunglasses and wide, carefree smiles. The location tag? Private beach, Maui, Hawaii. The caption? Finally together. Annual Riley family vacation has officially begun. Hashtag blessed, hashtag family time, the timestamp read. 11 a.m. Eastern time, meaning May had taken and posted that photo at dawn. Hawaii time deliberately to be seen before my ceremony. My eyes blurred with tears. I zoomed in on their faces, searching for guilt. There was none, just joy and freedom. Freedom from me. My chest ached so sharply, I briefly wondered if I was having a heart attack. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a scheduling conflict. This was intentional cruelty, a unified, premeditated effort to exclude me on the most meaningful day of my life. Then something in the photo caught my eye. In the background, hanging from a cabana, was a partially visible banner. I zoomed in further. Riley Family Retreat 2023. They had planned this. Chosen this date, my wedding date, months in advance. With shaking hands. I typed a short comment under the photo. Perfect timing. Then I turned to Amy and my bridesmaids, who were watching me with a mix of heartbreak and rage. The ceremony starts in an hour, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. Let's finish getting ready. Are you sure? Amy asked quietly. You don't have to do this today. No one would blame you. I turned to face the mirror. Staring back was a bride standing tall, not broken, but resolute. Absolutely. I'm marrying the man I love today. Their absence doesn't change. That, if anything, it confirms I made the right choice. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. The last fragile hope that my family might eventually accept me, it died. In its place was clarity. A sharp, uncheckable understanding of who they were and who. I would never again try to please. The final hour passed in a blur. My bridesmaids became warriors of encouragement, doing everything they could to make this day feel beautiful and full. The wedding coordinator adjusted the seating arrangements discreetly, making the empty chairs less obvious. As I stood at the entrance to the ceremony space, I saw the vacant row where my family should have been. Friends had spread out to fill in the gaps, but the absence still screamed like a wound. The music began. Everyone stood. I hesitated for just a breath. In every version of this day I'd ever imagined, my father had been beside me, walking me toward my future. But now I stood alone. Then I saw Eric waiting at the altar, his eyes locked on mine. The moment I saw him, every ounce of doubt disappeared. I took a step, then another. Halfway down the aisle, Amy's father quietly rose from his seat and extended his arm. May I have the honor? He asked softly. Tears welled again, but this time for a different reason. Yes, I whispered, accepting his arm. His simple kindness nearly broke me. The ceremony was simple, heartfelt, and breathtaking. Eric and I read our vows, words of love, partnership, and unwavering respect. And as we exchanged rings, I felt something heavy lift. The people who had chosen not to witness this didn't deserve a place in my happiness dot at the reception. Some guests avoided the topic. Others offered soft glances of sympathy. But the truth was written in the empty chairs, in the photo I would never forget, and in the strength I found when I walked forward anyway. As the time for toast approached, I recognized that I needed to confront the unspoken truth in the room. Taking the microphone in hand, I looked over the gathered friends, those who had become my chosen family, and spoke honestly. Thank you for being here with Eric and me today. Your presence means more than words can express. Love is a choice, one we make daily. And today, every one of you chose to stand by our love story. That, to me, is what family truly is. And I'm honored to call you mine. I didn't mention those who had decided not to come, but the message was clear. The celebration continued with dinner, dancing, and every cherished wedding tradition. I was determined to fill the day with happiness, to build joyful memories despite the absence that tried to overshadow it. Later that night, back in our hotel suite, the emotional walls I'd kept up all day finally crumbled. Still in my wedding dress, I sank onto the bed and let the tears fall. Eric sat beside me, his hand in mine, offering quiet comfort as I allowed myself to feel all the grief I had suppressed. "I'm so sorry they did this to you," he whispered when my sobs subsided. "You didn't deserve it." I wiped my face and turned toward the man who had stood by me through it all, the man who had never once pushed me to cut them off, even when they had treated him so poorly. "I'm done," I said, my voice steadying with each syllable. Done waiting for them to change. Done explaining away their behavior. Done pretending we're just a normal family going through rough patches. Eric listened carefully, nodding. "They crossed a line today that they can't uncross," I continued. "And now I have to protect myself for good." "Whatever you choose, I'm behind you," he said. "What are you thinking?" I rose and slowly began taking off my wedding dress, a symbolic gesture of shedding the identity they'd always tried to impose on me. The Riley Luxury Hotels documents list me as a board member and part owner, though they've always tried to keep me powerless, I said. They needed my name for tax and inheritance purposes, but never thought I'd do anything with it. Eric's eyes widened as he caught on. "My name is also on most of the corporate accounts," I added. "It was all for appearances. They didn't think I'd ever act. Tonight, I'm removing myself from the company charter and freezing the corporate spending accounts I control." "That's a huge move," Eric said carefully. "Are you absolutely sure?" "More certain than I've ever been," I said. "They made their position clear. Now I'll show them what that choice will cost them." I changed into comfortable clothes and grabbed my laptop. Years of being underestimated had left me with unfettered access they'd never restricted. Me assuming I was too timid to act. While they enjoyed their Hawaiian vacation, I sent out formal notices to the company's legal department, removing myself from the ownership structure. I contacted the banks and, using my authority, temporarily froze all discretionary spending, leaving payroll and operations untouched. This wasn't about harming staff. It was about drawing a line with my family dot. As the sun rose on my first morning as a wife, I finally crawled into bed, drained but oddly serene. The hurt was real, but so was my regained power. "Do you think they've noticed yet?" Eric asked, as we snuggled under the blankets. "They will," I said, closing my eyes. "Very soon." Instead of departing for our extravagant honeymoon, Eric and I chose to stay nearby. We delayed our Italy plans and booked a quiet cabin in the Berkshires for a short 3-day retreat. Before we left, I scheduled a meeting with Jonathan Reed, a lawyer I trusted and who had no links to my family's legal representation. I explained everything and asked him to verify that my actions were within legal bounds. "Everything you did falls within your rights as a board member and account holder," Jonathan confirmed after reviewing the paperwork. Removing yourself from the company is simple, and the freezes are temporary and affect only non-critical business spending. Nothing illegal here. Though, be ready, they'll be furious. That's what I'm counting on, I replied. Jonathan advised I retain a forensic accountant to document my role and contributions over the years, emails, financial decisions, anything showing my value and influence. It would serve as protection if my family tried to claim I had acted with malice. Think of it as insurance, he said. If this becomes legal, you'll want proof of your worth and reasons. I agreed and hired Margaret Chen, an expert in complex family business matters. She began work immediately. By late afternoon, Eric and I were driving to the cabin. My phone was set to do not disturb. I wasn't ready for the chaos I knew was coming. The cabin was just what we needed. Quiet, remote, filled with golden autumn, leaves and solitude. For 2 days, we hiked, cooked, read, and began to heal. On the third day, curiosity got the best of me. I checked my email. Dozens of messages from my family, each angrier than the last. The first wave, sent early Hawaii time, were confused. Why were corporate cards being declined? By midday, the tone had shifted. Outrage, disbelief. By evening, once legal, confirmed. I had exited the charter. The emails turned venomous. My father's message was brutal. Your tantrum will cost you everything. Don't expect to return to the company. My mother's message was icier. I always knew you'd choose him over us. You made your bed. Trevor's was vulgar and threatening, promising retribution. But the worst part was how little their threats affected me. I had already grieved their loss. Their fury only validated my decision. I noticed several missed calls from company staff, people I respected. I returned a call to Maria, the CFO. It's chaos here, she said. Your father is lashing out, threatening everyone who knew you had access. Trevor's accusing people of corporate sabotage. They're out of control. They know exactly what triggered this, I said calmly. They skipped my wedding, flaunted it. There are consequences. For what it's worth, she said softly, many of us wanted to go. But your father warned that anyone who did would be fired. That stung. I hadn't realized how deep the manipulation went. It's not your fault, I told her. But you might want to consider other options. I don't think things will improve there. The next day, Eric and I returned home. Over dinner, we began to discuss the future. I didn't want to rejoin the business, but I needed to decide how to unwind the situation. Keeping accounts frozen too long would hurt innocent people. What do you want to happen next? Eric asked as we sat on the balcony, watching Boston's skyline light up the night. Acknowledgement, I said after reflecting. Not just a hollow apology, but genuine recognition of their actions and how they've treated me over the years. I wanted it documented, something they couldn't later deny or rewrite. We agreed I'd give them a week to sit with the consequences of their behavior before engaging again. During that time, I'd work with Jonathan and Margaret to create a thorough resolution. Proposal. This proposal would outline terms for unfreezing the accounts, a formal acknowledgement of my contributions, financial compensation for the ideas and strategies they had profited from while giving credit to Trevor, and a legally binding agreement that they wouldn't interfere in my future ventures. Finalizing these plans, I braced for confrontation. My family wouldn't back down easily, especially my father, who was famously proud. But this time, I wasn't afraid. By week's end, Margaret had assembled a compelling dossier with dozens of examples of how my work had saved or earned the company millions. Jonathan had drafted the legal documents, and I was emotionally prepared for what was sure to be an ugly encounter. I didn't wait long. Exactly 1 week after our return from the Berkshires, the doorbell rang continuously, followed by aggressive banging. As I neared the door, I peered through the peephole. My father, red-faced with rage, stood outside. Behind him, my mother stood with arms crossed tightly, and Trevor paced like a trapped animal. I steadied my breath, composed myself, and opened the door. With deliberate calm, I sipped from my coffee mug. Well, this is a surprise. Did you enjoy Maui? My father shoved past me. What the hell do you think you're doing? Do you even realize the damage you've caused? My mother and Trevor followed, glaring. Eric emerged from our office and stood beside me silently in support. I assume you're referring to the account freezes and my removal from the charter, I replied. All actions fully within my legal rights as a named partner. Legal rights? My father roared. You've paralyzed operations. Hotels can't take payments. Vendors aren't paid. Executives can't access funds. All because of some petty wedding grievance. Setting my mug down, I locked eyes with him. Petty grievance? You all scheduled a vacation to overlap with my wedding and posted photos designed to hurt me. You call that petty? We take the same trip every year, my mother said defensively. Interesting, because the resort site called it the inaugural. Riley Family Retreat, booked 4 months ago, 2 weeks after my save the date cards went out. My mother shifted uneasily. Trevor leapt in. So what if we did? It's not like your wedding to that nobody mattered. You chose him over us. What did you expect? Eric tensed beside me but let me lead. I expected decency, but clearly that was too much. So I used the tools you all taught me. I protected my interests, my father scoffed. And what interests are those? You've cut yourself off from the family fortune, your position, your inheritance. For what? A dramatic statement? I walked to the table and retrieved 3 thick folders labeled with their names. I handed them out. These contain records of my contributions to Riley Luxury Hotels over 5 years, often salvaging problems Trevor created. Trevor's face paled as he read. My father resisted, jaw tight. The first section, I said, pointing, details how my Miami marketing strategy increased. Revenue 30% year over year. Yet you credited Trevor. To my mother, your folder documents 3 occasions I secured permits Trevor failed to file, saving hotel launches. Funny how that didn't make the Christmas card featuring Trevor's leadership. They flipped through. The materials in silence. This proves nothing, my father muttered, lacking conviction. It proves everything, I countered. And this is just a sample. My lawyer has full documentation, including financials showing my projects outperformed Trevor's by 42%, plus 3 major legal risks I prevented due to his poor judgment. Trevor snapped his folder shut. Ridiculous. You think this will hold in court? I welcome court, I said with a smile. Let our competitors, investors, and press see how close. Trevor came to losing Chicago. My father shifted from fury to calculation. What do you want? Acknowledgement, recognition, a formal agreement of non-interference in my future, and a settlement for my work. When will you unfreeze the accounts? My mother asked. Upon signing the agreement. The paperwork is prepared. Acknowledge my role. Agree to a fair settlement and commit to staying out of my way. This is extortion, Trevor spat. This is business, I replied. The kind Dad taught me to conduct. My father narrowed his eyes. And if we refuse, then the accounts remain frozen. We proceed to litigation. Every detail becomes public. I have nothing to lose. You have everything to hide. They exchanged glances. My father finally said, we need to review this with our lawyers. Of course. Jonathan Reed's contact info is in the folders. Just know the longer it drags on, the more costly it gets financially and reputationally. My mother finally spoke. Was your wedding nice? It was beautiful, I said. Surrounded by people who truly care about me.